All right, hello and welcome to another episode of the Transformative Principal podcast. This is Mike Caldwell, your host, still subbing for Jethro Jones, and today's guest is Jason Leshowitz. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate having me here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All the way from New Jersey, author of the Rejection-Proof Educator. There's a lot in there. I can't wait to dive into that. A lot of years in education. Jason, what are you currently doing?
Currently,
What kind of work are you doing right now?
Sure. I'm an arts administrator. I supervise 65 teachers in one of the largest school districts in New Jersey. Supervising music, theater, art, dance, film, television, custodial works, everything under the sun. No, I'm kidding. But about the last part. But I do a lot of, I wear a lot of hats. I also I'd say about a year and a half ago, I decided to do a side business, which has turned into more than a side business, called Rejection-Proof Career, where I help educators, creatives, and leaders basically translate their skills to communicate the value that they may have that would be related to education adjacent roles, and or just pivoting up onto higher leadership. So basically pivoting up through leadership or out of education into education adjacent roles. And I help them do interview coaching. I do resume revamps, but more it's like a coach, a career coach. And so I do that after my work hours, but it's slowly turning into more than that. Basically because I got a book picked up by Amplify Publishers called Rejection-Proof Career. Which is, it's the Rejection-Proof Educator, I should say, how to translate your experience into better pay and bigger opportunities, which we could talk about a little later. But it's all related to, my experience, and also, what I do as a career coach for educators and leaders.
Excellent. Yeah. So before we go there, so you're in looks like a very large public school environment, and you're working specifically with teachers that are teaching on more of the creative music arts side, and you're supervising them. So are you on the administrative team, the leadership team?
I'm one of actually 14 supervisors in our school district of 11,000 students and about 73 administrators. There's about, like I said, 14 supervisors, and I'm the supervisor of visual and performing arts for our district. And I report right to the assistant superintendent of curriculum. But I've been on many.
Okay. Are you also teaching?
I don't teach anymore. I teach privately. I teach some violin, viola, and cello students, but I don't think you want to hear about that in your podcast. But I do. If you need virtual violin lessons, I can give you this. My teaching, I've been in this job for 13 years, and I've been in education for over 30. And in the same school district since 2001. And so that's basically my little backstory. And what kind of led me into the rejection-proof side business is because, I'm living, I wanted someone I wished I'd had back in my early days to guide me. I went, when I was a school leader, I went for administrative jobs and got rejected over 7 years until I found the position I loved. And I found myself, now I look back, I was doing the same thing over and over and over, saying the same, answers that were more like, resume bullets instead of, what impact I had. It was like I started talking to other teachers and leaders, administrators. And I felt like there was a need out there. They were getting dejected from their rejections, and over and over and over. So it started out really small. I just did arts people and teachers, but then assistant principals. A lot of assistant principals I ran into that were trying to get in the principal role. And I'm sure you know that way back when the struggle is real for assistant principals trying to break into the principal role. And you might be saying, what does an arts guy know about assistant principals trying to break into the principal role? Well, I sit on many different I've sat and continue to sit on many different hiring panels throughout the years. And I know what works and what doesn't work. And I give them frameworks. I give them, I don't tell them to memorize these answers, but we workshop different versions of their answers. And I find, Mike, maybe you found this when you were a principal interviewing vice principal candidates, that the answer that trips them up the most is the first one, which is tell me a little bit about yourself, right? It's like people just go in circles, they ramble for 10 minutes, or they come up with a 20-second answer that tells the hiring panel nothing. And, you'd be surprised at how much work just goes into that one question, but first impressions mean everything, right? So that's a little bit about what I do now in my roles, plural.
Yeah. Did you, and I can totally relate what you're saying and thinking about the interviews and things like that, those first questions or first couple questions, sometimes those first couple questions are like, okay, this interview's over and you're just going to go through the motions anyway. But how you start matters for sure. So if you're listening, this is important. I'm curious, did you start this kind of looking at within education, kind of helping whether it's teacher get into administration or teacher get into a different role, or maybe the assistant principal getting into the principal roles? Because there's a whole other separate conversation I want to get into in addition to that is we also have this, what feels like sometimes desire, this mass exodus of people that are wanting to spin out of education and find a place in industry somewhere else. And so I'm curious, first and foremost, like, where did you start it? And and then also, are you also focused on the latter part of that where people are trying to get out of education? Because one of my goals is to keep people in education, but I see there's probably a huge value in what you're doing too, is helping people maybe spin out of education. So we might be on competing forces here, but
your question is spot on, and I understand where it's coming from, and I have a pretty detailed answer for you, because where I started and where I am are two very different places. I started out thinking that I would just be helping out, arts teachers and regular teachers, and maybe a VP here or there, interview better, get their resume looking better so they get their foot in the door. But then, I mean, I started, I knew, I don't know about you, man, but like 2 years ago, I had no presence. I did nothing on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm an old guy on Facebook, an older guy. I shouldn't say old guy, 52. But I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but I had nothing to do with it, LinkedIn. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put a couple posts on LinkedIn about what I'm doing now, thinking I'd get more teachers interested in pivoting up to leadership roles or vice principals and principals. But what I found was I was getting my inbox flooded with what you just referenced, which is burnout, and did I mention burnout? And people wanting out of education, which is sad, scary, but true. I love my job, but many people unfortunately don't anymore in education. It's not because of their bosses per se. It's not because of the role or the job itself. It's because, and stop me if you've heard this, they feel like the behaviors have changed dramatically in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years. They feel like there's more responsibilities and less time to do that. Their mental health is not as strong in the job they're doing. They feel like the parents don't respect and support them anymore. And I was hearing all that. And I was like, well, what do I know about education adjacent positions? I know education, but I started doing research, and I found out that there's a ton of different education adjacent positions that burnt out, and not only burnt out teachers who feel like they want more out of their careers can go into. And I can tell you about some of them, like learning and development. That's one, ed tech, huge. Nonprofit executive roles. There's instructional design, client success. There's so many different avenues to go towards. But what I found that these people were applying to those roles, but not getting traction because they were still speaking in teacher speak or principal speak versus, I don't want to say corporate speak, but education adjacent speak. And that's where a lot of my coaching then started pivoting into. So I was living the pivoting dream as these people were pivoting too. We're we're all doing it together. So I helped them change their bullets on their resume, and I don't want to say change. I should say kind of shape their bullets, their resumes to more reflect the roles they're going for. And then we started talking about, how to, just the corporate speak is just very different from the education speak. And that was what a large part of my clientele was, particularly from, I'd say, October through February of the year. Once the school year began, I can't take it. And then now from like March through August, I feel like it's switched. It's more leaders trying to pivot upwards, but don't get me wrong. There are tons of educators out there who need to hear what it's like outside of education. And I like to say that I'm not telling or teaching teachers how to get out of education. I'm just teaching them how to grow in a different way, and they're never leaving teaching. They're just teaching through a different avenue or through a different vehicle. And I'm here for any avenue. If someone wants to stay in education and go upwards, I can, I've helped with that. And the other route as well. I do find, and maybe you've found this too in your interviews, that unfortunately and sadly, there are a lot more teachers wanting to leave the field than stay in it these last few years, especially those teaching 10 years or more.
Absolutely. Yeah, your work reminds me of, I haven't done a lot of this work, but I had a colleague connect me with a current teacher coach in my own state, and he's been looking to try to get into industry. And so probably similar work that you're doing with others is, just back and forth sharing his resume and recrafting. You can take pretty much any part of your resume, but if you just go based on your current context as a teacher, coach, or administrator, and you just build it, that when that tech company gets it, they're going to say, well, this is a teacher. I'm not looking for a teacher. I'm looking for a customer, support specialist. I'm looking for, as a internal sales, a lead or whatever else. So what I don't know if this was the right advice. I haven't dug as far as into it as you have, but I was like, start with the job that you're trying to go towards, and then work backwards. How do you recraft your messaging? Not lie.
Never about lying or exaggerating, just reframing it.
Look at your experiences, and say, how can that experience or what I've already done translate into this role, right? And then be able to message it appropriately. And I think that's what you mean. I think you said most often educators maybe are under-translated, not under-qualified. Is that kind of what you mean? It's not the qualification.
The translation translate. And I want to give you a quick example based on what you were just saying. I worked with a teacher who had applied to more than 40 corporate learning and development jobs, right? And like 40 times rejected, not even a foot in the door, and never made it past the phone screen. And so we changed how the experience was coming through. We didn't exaggerate. We didn't, make up stuff or anything. For example, on her resume, she originally had created lesson plans and supported teacher training. A bullet that many teachers have. But like you said, corporate jobs, they're not looking for lesson planning. So we reframed it as, designed and facilitated professional learning systems that improved instructional consistency across multiple teams. Another example would be a bullet that said worked with struggling students and parents. Well, an ed tech company doesn't really care about that, if I'm being blunt. So we reframed it as, and it's the same concept, just reframed differently, managed high-stake stakeholder communication while coordinating individual intervention planning across multidisciplinary teams. Same work, right? But completely different interpretation. And even her interview opener, changed a little bit. Instead of, I'm passionate about helping students, which all good teachers are, we shifted towards, I specialize in improving learning experiences through training, communication, and performance support. And within 2 weeks, said multiple interviews, and within 2 months, multiple offers. Because now I'm simplifying and making it sound easy. I don't want to give the impression to your audience that all they have to do is change a couple bullets and they're going to get jobs. Because these ed tech and instructional design and learning development positions are so competitive nowadays. That I just spoke to a client literally yesterday who said, and this is not an exaggeration, since February, she's applied to 375 jobs on Indeed.com and LinkedIn, and she's gotten 0 responses. Now, I looked at her resume, and she had, it was decent. It wasn't like I'm passionate about teaching. I do lesson planning, but it wasn't like what we talked either, what we just talked about. And we changed some things, and where I'm hoping for that she has a different impact. But this is what the typical teacher who is experiencing, that when they want to get out of education, it's not like it's just, I apply 5 jobs, I'll get something, because it's so heavily competitive right now. But, just get that extra step up, whether you're an administrator, teacher leader, it is good to translate your experience. And also, I find a lot of teachers, particularly, maybe not so much assistant principals and principals, but they negate their experience as well. I'm just a teacher. I'm just a vice principal. I'm just a building leader. But you're not. You're doing so many different things on a leadership level that translates into these other positions. It's just my job to kind of help bring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the additional challenge in this is not just the, hurdle of retranslating your qualifications, skill set, and experiences. The reality is outside of education, the job market is
You're right.
also very tough right now. There's tons of layoffs. Ed tech is, all of it is no exception. So even with the best resume, connected to the right, potential opportunities, may not result in the job, because there's not a lot of jobs out there right now and maybe there is. I haven't been on the job hunt for a while, but it's a tough market out there. I mean, I know many college graduates that are, looking for anything they can find at this point, because there's not a lot out there. So I'm curious, what other, I'll share, what other, beyond the resume and the translations of those skills and experiences, what other advice you give people to, whether it's grow into a position within education or pivot out of education into other positions. I have my own ideas or experiences in that. I'm curious on what are the things that you maybe would add to a person's
Toolbox.
repertoire to help, toolbox to help them kind of move up.
I'd say one of the biggest mistakes I find that educators make when, trying to move into higher level roles, whether it's within or outside of education, is they, describe responsibilities instead of demonstrating leadership thinking. So, principals actually, see this constantly. You post an AP opening, somebody applies who is strong, right? And their resume says collaborated with colleagues, served on committees, supported student achievement, and you immediately think to yourself, you're underselling yourself, which is what I was talking about earlier with that's just negating your experience. Because what they actually did, they identified performance gaps, they redesigned systems, they trained teams, they influenced outcomes. But if people can't communicate their work at that level, hiring teams never fully see it. So one of the biggest shifts that I teach is helping people move from, here's what I handled, to here's the problem I identified, the decision I made, and the impact that followed. Because, executive level hiring is really about evaluating how somebody thinks under complexity, right? and not just the tasks that they completed. And honestly, once principals understand that distinction, they start developing their own people differently too, which is something I know we haven't talked about yet, but maybe we may want to, how to prevent the teachers from burning out, from finding your best teachers are, as you said, spinning out. It's not, I don't know about you. I supervise 65, 70 teachers, and I'm consistently surprised, and I don't have many teachers leave, but the ones that do are the ones that I'm sometimes surprised about versus the ones that should leave. They stay on, so like, how can we help prevent, these high level educators from leaving the field? And, that's something we could, talk about too.
Yeah. A couple things I would add, maybe to the conversation, that I believe to be true in my own personal journey. And I think it makes a difference when I'm hiring. And coincidentally, I'm a former high school principal, been in education a long time, spun out still in education, but now I'm running a software company. So very, very different. But I didn't wait for someone to tell me, give me that opportunity. And this leads to my first thing is, if it's something you want to do and you don't wait for a job to start doing it, or don't wait for someone to hand you kind of the keys to the door to start. I think if you want to go into ed tech, or you want to go into consulting, or you want to do whatever it is you want to do, start doing it before it becomes your full-time job, before it becomes an opportunity. There's always space for something. And I know how busy we all are, but whether it's a little bit, a couple nights a week in the evenings or in the summer, you start chipping away at some real experiences in a direction that you want to go eventually. That makes the path a lot shorter than going from where I am today, and I have this dream of being, this other role, in the future, but I'm not doing anything to move in that direction. And it's more than just resumes and more than just preparing for the interview. It's actually, what have you done proactively to move towards that?
You'll really distinguish yourself,
whether it's getting some additional training or, right. Yeah. Because otherwise it's like, yeah, I want that, customer sales success job at this ed tech company, but what have I done that's remotely close? I can maybe translate some of these skills, but are there some other things that I can do in between? So I think that's important too, is I think sometimes we dream about where we want to go, but we don't take the first step on the initiative, other than maybe just recrafting our resume and throwing out some applications. Like, I think there's things you can do while you're waiting for that opportunity.
I agree wholeheartedly. I really do.
What is the quote? Luck is when preparedness meets opportunity, I think is something like that. I think I'd probably butchered it, but I think that's very true. It's like, I got lucky on this job. Well, actually, I've been working to prepare for it, and the opportunity finally presented itself, but I was ready for it. And
Mike, I just want to tell you one other thing that kind of leads into that. I agree. Obviously, the more you can prepare your skill sets for the future job, obviously the better. But I find that, I work with a lot of clients who are surprised they're not getting any bites. But then I say, for educators, and I alluded to this earlier, LinkedIn is so out there. It's like, there's not many teachers who that the first social media option of choice is LinkedIn, but it really, and I don't work for LinkedIn. I have no affiliation, but it is so essential when you're looking at these education adjacent roles to put yourself out there. We talk about, if you're doing these side things, which you hope to make into a full-time job, you should post about it on LinkedIn. You should follow people who do what you want to do. and network with them and exchange ideas. And you'd be surprised how many opportunities open up that way. Now, you might not get the job, but the door opens if you're surrounding yourself with people who are already doing that job. And if you're surrounding yourself with 3rd and 4th and 5th grade teachers, or you're, at the high school level, 9th through 12th grade teachers constantly, you're not going to really get your foot into the ed tech world. But you could do that by obviously looking at YouTube tutorials and everything under the sun, but then also going on LinkedIn or Handshake or any of these sites and, connecting with people already in the field, and then posting and, sending private messages and see if they, have any insights and share your insights with them. And that really does, believe it or not, open up a lot of doors I've found with the clients I coach.
Jason, I don't disagree with you, but any of my colleagues, friends that are listening, know that for some reason, I just hate LinkedIn. And I know it's a necessary thing, but
people think it's very fake. It's very, everybody's just excited about it. But I get it. But, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. I'm just telling you,
it's like somebody,
that I've found,
No, I'm being, kind of tongue in cheek here, but I just really, I agree with you. It is important. It's an important place to network, connect, and learn and all those types of things. But it's just, what I struggle with is
I might be around the same age, and I know for I'd say 35, 40 and up, Facebook is more palatable, let's say. I'll take it one step further. There are so many Facebook groups out there for instructional designers, for ed tech software developers. Get yourself in those groups. Post there. Share ideas, and that's another place you can learn if LinkedIn isn't your cup of tea, which I totally get. But social media sometimes gets a lot of the time, and rightfully so, gets made out to be the villain, and and I get why. But there's a lot of it can help your career if used properly. So it's putting that there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree with you. But I just had to say something about LinkedIn because I've had my own struggles with the platform itself. So is your book now published, or is it still in the queue? Where are you at on the Rejection-Proof Educator?
I'm in the final edits phase. The book is due to come out in June, July this summer, and then through the publisher, Amplify Publishing. And then by August, I'm hoping it'll be in Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and other bookstores near you. So that's the plan. And I'm really excited about it.
And so if someone that's looking to pick that up once it's published, if they're looking at either, an opportunity to grow, vertically in their career and do some things within the education space, or spin out and find something, this is a book that they can use as a guide to kind of help them, whether it's rewrite and retranslate their skills on their resume, prepare better for an interview. What are some tangible takeaways that they're going to get from your book that will really help them in one of those?
Well, it's about 200 pages in it. It's very readable. You don't have to read it from 1 to 200. You can do it section by section, depending on what phase of your career search, your job search you're at. But I cover all those areas. It's not just for educators who are trying to pivot out of education. It's not just for teacher leaders who want to become assistant principals. It's different chapters for different types of pivots. But every type of pivot has the same thing in common, which is translating what they do currently into the career they want to do. So we go over, there's worksheets in there, there's frameworks, there's real world scenarios, there's case studies telling you what people I've worked with have done to get this success in their pivot. I know, Mike, this is the dirty word, LinkedIn. It does have a whole section on LinkedIn, how to use it properly if you're scared of it or hate it.
Get your book. I'll get your book
There's a
just
whole
to read that
chapter on there.
chapter. Yeah. I can use all that
There's
help.
also chapters on, once this is something that not a lot of books I've read talk about, which is why I wanted to include it. Now that you've got the job, oh my God, I've never done this type of thing. Fake it till you make it, right? But what next after that? How do you present yourself to your staff in an education adjacent role? How do you lead from a different level? And that's a whole chapter. But it starts off at what we talked about, just how to reframe your resume, and then what you should be thinking about, how you can be coached in interviews when you're applying to pivot either upwards or out of education. So it's a very practical book. It's not there's nothing that it's gonna blow your mind. I write in very, like I talk. I think I'm not just floating my own boat here. Many people have told me that it's very, if you could see how I write if you go on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, Jason Leshowitz, Leshowitz. A lot of things I have in the book, I started off as posts there. And I also have an Instagram page at Rejection-Proof Career, which a lot of things I cover in the book are on there as well. And if you like that writing style, if you like what I'm saying, I'd love you to pick up the book when it comes out this summer.
Yeah, we'll definitely put a link to your LinkedIn and wherever else, your website and anything else in the show notes so people can access and reach out to you.
And Mike, I'm glad you brought up the website because I forgot to mention that. Silly me. Rejectionproofcareer.com. I have many free resources on there, worksheets, frameworks, and everything else under the sun. So yeah, again, if you're pivoting out or upwards in education, there's something for everyone on there. And there's also an early access sign up list to get on the book, to get the first chapters of the book if you'd like to go to the site. So thank you for bringing that up, Mike.
Awesome. All right. Sounds like great resource for people. I hope the people that are listening are looking at it as a way to stay in education, but to grow in their professional career. We need more great people leading and being part of our education landscape across the U.S. And I know it's tough work, but there's a lot of support out there for you. And it sounds like this is another great opportunity. So as we close up today, Jason always asks the last question of the show. What does it mean to you to be a transformative leader?
What it means to me is giving educators not only the skill sets, but the confidence and motivation to really do what they love and love what they do. And sometimes that may mean to continue in education and get into a leadership role. And sometimes that may mean to lead other people outside of education. But I obviously would love to give them the tools to do that more confidently and competently. And that's what it means to me to be a transformational leader.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Again, we'll put your information in the show notes for anybody that would like to reach out to you directly through LinkedIn, which is just a great platform, and or directly to your website. So, Jason, thanks for being part of this. I know we had some technology challenges at the beginning, but you persevered, made it happen anyway. And for those of you listening, thanks for listening to another episode of Transformative Principal Podcast. We'll catch you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Jason.